Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and dear students from Flanders, Europe and far beyond, welcome to this webinar, How to Become SDG Proof, to award the Agency for Facility Operations of the Flemish Government, in Dutch, het Facilitair Bedrijf, the first UNITAR SDG Champion training certificate of completion. We are honored that the United Nations Assistant Secretary General and Executive Director of UNITAR, Mr. Nikhil Seth, joins us today to give his reflections on the importance of capacity building on sustainable development and of leading by example, and of course to hand over virtually this important certificate. This webinar is an initiative of CIFAL Flanders in close collaboration with UNITAR, the Agency for Facility Operations of the Flemish Government, headquartered in Brussels. And in this context also, we work together with the Flemish Government and with the Antwerp Government. We do this in the context of the start of the SDG decade for action, the next 10 years to go to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And we do this also in the context of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. Flanders is the Dutch-speaking region in the north of Belgium, and we are organizing this webinar from the headquarters of the Flemish Government in Brussels. For those who doesn't know yet, CIFAL is the abbreviation for Centre International de Formation des Autorités et Leaders. So it's a French abbreviation in origin. In English, International Training Center for Authorities and Leaders. We are affiliated with UNITAR, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, headquartered in Geneva. We are part of the CIFAL Global Network with 20 CIFALs around the globe. And we also want to welcome our colleagues around the globe who are joining us today for this webinar. All those CIFALs, in collaboration with UNITAR, are giving trainings on UN texts and declarations. The most important one is the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, approved by all 193 UN member states 5 years ago in September 2015. Our mission is capacity building for sustainable development in line with target 4.7 in the Agenda 2030. And this is the target 4.7. By 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. We have our own methodology. It's called action-based learning. We go from knowledge, from learning to ownership, from ownership to local action, and also very important, from local action to international solidarity and collaboration. Our SDG portfolio is about training, coaching, and project development. And this is the program for today. after a short introduction by myself on our training and implementation trajectory, our colleagues of the Agency for Facility Operations will give an introduction on their sustainability efforts of last 5 years. An introduction by Frank Yates, the Administrator General, and followed by a presentation of Johan van Damme, the CSR Coordinator. We have then a little exercise with all of you by Mentimeter, so if possible, keep your cell phones available. And then we are very lucky and honored to have Nikhil Seth as UN Assistant Secretary General today with us to give a short introduction and some reflections on the importance of leading by example in the implementation of the SDGs in an organization. And then, of course, the key topic of today is to hand over the UNITAR SDG Champion training certificate. We will close before some Q&A with Mr. Jan Smets, who will speak on behalf of the Minister President of the Flemish Government. So let's take a look at the CIFAL Flanders training and implementation trajectory. This is our trajectory. It's built upon 3 steps. The step 1 is SDG Pioneer, step 2 is SDG Champion, and step 3 is SDG Ambassador. The whole trajectory takes more or less 5 to 6 years. It's about integrating the SDGs, it's about transition, and it's about working on human rights due diligence to become, at the end, SDG proof. The starting point is the ISO 26000, the most important global guidance on corporate social responsibility. And what is very important in this ISO 26000, that is that the definition on what should be the societal responsibility of an organization is defined as follows. The societal social responsibility of an organization is the responsibility for its impacts of its decisions and activities on society and the environment through transparent and ethical behavior that contributes to sustainable development. And of course, that is key. So the key element, the key goal of taking your societal responsibility as an organization, a concrete actor in society, is strengthening sustainable development. And of course, that is the link to the idea of the Agenda 2030. What did we do? In 2018, for the first time, we had a physical award ceremony in the Flemish Parliament to award 18 SDG pioneers, the first 18 organizations in Flanders, Belgium, to become SDG pioneer. One of them was the Agency for Facility Operations. So that was the starting point 2 years ago. Let's see what they had to do to become SDG pioneer. We have 5 elements. There is a part of understanding, of knowledge, capacity building, a part of organizing, a part of reviewing, formulating, and communicate and report through monitoring. The first step was knowing the Agenda 2030 for sustainable development, knowing the holistic approach, and learning about the business case for the SDGs. Not only the aspect of responsibility, but also the aspect of opportunity. The second step is organize yourself internally in your organization in such a way you can achieve a transversal, holistic approach of implementing the SDGs. That means a task force, that means a commitment on the strategic level of the organization, and that means building up sustainability competences within the organization. The third step is a very important one. Most of the organizations have already a certain amount of sustainability activities or even smart targets within the organization. But what we do is reviewing what is existing through the lens of the SDGs, reviewing the purpose, reviewing ethical principles and values of the organization, reviewing what could be the lead SDG, the most important topic where there is a possibility of negative impact on society. So we do a revision of the existing situation of the organization. And of course, nowadays, we also need to take into account the possible impact of COVID-19. The fourth step is to formulate through the revision some new elements, formulate the impact assessment, formulate new SDGs and targets that should be prioritized, and of course set up a concrete SDG action plan based on smart objectives in the organization, taking into account the 5 Ps. And last but not least, having a holistic SDG assessment of the objectives and the actions that will be undertaken through what we call the SDG spiderweb. Last but not least, the importance of monitoring, of communication, and of reporting. So we expect from an SDG pioneer that that organization publishes an SDG charter expressing its commitment to the SDG and having an internal and external communication plan. What is important for this first phase, that is that we are not only focusing on the Agenda 2030 from an action perspective, what we can do, but also from an ethical perspective, in which way we should do the things we want to do. So it's an ethical perspective and a perspective of governance principles. And here you see a lot of values that are mentioned in the Agenda 2030 that we use as a reflection to review values in an organization. So from our perspective, from the very first phase in our SDG-proof trajectory, we combine actions, values, and principles. We combine actions on sustainable development, values, reading the Agenda 2030 from an ethical compass perspective, and introducing principles on good governance. And after that work that has been done, a work of more or less 2.5 years to 3 years, an organization can become SDG pioneer. And so 2 years ago, this organization in Flanders became SDG pioneer and was awarded with the UNITAR certificate. Next step is becoming SDG Champion. And that means we will raise the bar from integration to transition, from weak to strong sustainability. And that means that we will review all the elements that we saw in the first phase, but from another angle. And the angle is transition, is strong sustainability. Defining your sustainability activities and actions within the boundaries of the planet. What is also very important in this second phase, that is that we stress the importance of sustainable business models, models in line with circular economy. Secondly, we want a review and to reorganize elements from a stakeholder's perspective. So to include the vision and input of stakeholders on the action plan that was delivered in the first step, in the first phase. Thirdly, we will review a lot of elements. Review the concrete action plan from a science-based perspective. Review the action plan through the lens of the stakeholders. Review the action plan in line with local and regional policy making. And very important, assessing how the ethical component, the ethical reflection can be organized for the means of implementation, for the means that are used within the organization to become more sustainable. For example, ethical reflections on the financial or technological level. And a review of the charter. And then we ask in the second phase that the organization conducts a code of conduct, a code of ethical awareness within the organization, and there must be at least a pilot project that is based on the concept of transition. So the idea of working on sustainable business models. And last but not least, there needs to be an exploration on an SDG business case. So redesigning a product, a service, or an activity that is based on the idea of the opportunities created by the SDGs. And last but not least, of course, also communicate and report. Most important in the second phase is that the progress that has been made is measured. And secondly, that within an annual reporting, the 5 Ps of the Agenda 2030 are included. So not only about people, prosperity and planet, but also about peace and partnership. This is the context of the work we do. This is the methodology we use. And as you have seen in the approach, we have even a third phase, a phase on integrating human rights in the idea of the implementation of SDGs. And now, for the first time, some organizations will start in this third phase. But I'd like to give the floor to Frank Geets, who is the Administrator General of the Agency for Facility Operations of the Flemish Government, to give a short introduction on the approach, the vision on how this organization within the Flemish Government works about sustainability. Frank, the floor is yours.
Good morning. My name is Frank Geets. I'm the Administrator General of the Agency for Facility Operations of the Government of Flanders. Our name in Dutch, het facilitair bedrijf, refers to the term business bedrijf. That doesn't really make you think of a governmental organization, but we choose to reflect our philosophy. We want to work like a business, fast, flexible, customer focused, less bureaucratic. And I'll explain you briefly what we do. We are an internal service provider within the Government of Flanders. And our service provision is clustered into 4 areas: building construction and real estate management, facility management, which is hospitality, catering, cleaning, security, etc. Public procurement, including drawing up framework agreements and making all kinds of purchases, and our common ICT. In short, you could say we take the pressure of our colleagues in the Flemish administration so that they can focus on their core business, on their service provision to society. And we therefore have a unique position into the Government of Flanders. After all, we set our own facility policy and have a fully fledged management and organization structure. Over the years, we have grown into a large organization, and this growth will continue in the years to come. The government of Flanders has decided to further centralize the real estate and purchasing management of the Flemish administration into our hands. In other words, we have an important influence on the development of sustainability within the government of Flanders. I'm a great proponent of sustainable enterprise. To me, sustainability is a win-win story. In the long term, it results in cost savings, not only for us as government, but also for the society as a whole. And thanks to the focus on sustainability, questions arise more readily. For example, at the start of a building process, we will try to see how can we make the most sustainable building, a circular building. And the right direction can be taken much earlier in the process. I'm also a proponent of the principle of not management of sustainability, but sustainable management. And of course, sustainability must be monitored at a strategic level and handled in a structured manner. And that is why it is essential to embed sustainability as one of our added values to our colleagues, but also to develop our mission, vision, and objectives framework with sustainability as their common thread. The SDGs provided us with an important reflection framework to help us refine our sustainability ambitions and objectives. Our mission states that we aim to create a sustainable and inspirational working environment so that the staff of the government of Flanders can excel and do this in an innovative, efficient, and professional manner. And that are our three added values, which we have put on to the others. We also want to accept our social responsibility for the effects in every step of its value chain and commit to initiatives that go further than the current legislation. An ambition that seamlessly connects with the intention of the United Nations to set the world on a road to a sustainable and resilient future with its Agenda 2030, the SDGs. Recent social events, think about heat waves, wildfires, COVID-19, etc., demonstrate that we cannot afford to ignore this call. And we have already come a long way, together with CIFAL Flanders, to position the SDGs in the day-to-day operations of our organization. Using these SDG targets help us to improve sustainability and to see how we can bring about further social change. And as an agency, we want to be a game changer, to take the lead in our sector and stimulate the market. And the SDGs assist us in this. Within the organization, I want to make everyone aware of the necessity and to involve every member of the workforce, because an important factor of success for achieving transitions and breakthroughs is the collaboration with the stakeholders throughout the process: customers, suppliers, businesses, knowledge institutes, other governmental bodies. Entering into partnerships, championing co-creation, and this helps us to respond to trends in facility services provision, ensure an increase in capacity and the sharing of knowledge. That means focusing on people and resources in order to grow our organization. The deployment of more circular business models and the creation of new value chains is extremely important here. And we have already been able to achieve some good results in these areas, and Johan will talk further on this in the next topic. To end, sustainability is a value that is gaining in importance and whereby the common language and common awareness have a bonding effect amongst organizations, not only within our own organizations, but also with our stakeholders. And I'm extremely pleased and proud that we are receiving this certificate today. It gives us the confidence to continue along the road we have chosen and challenges us to take the next steps together with our stakeholders and certainly with the other organizations in the CIFAL Flanders network. We would welcome all suggestions that can move us forward along this transition path. But I accept this certificate first and foremost on behalf of all my colleagues, the employees of the Facilitair Bedrijf. They are the driving force in our sustainability story. Nothing, by the way, is better than taking steps together in the right decision. And that is why I would suggest that besides following the 5 P's of planet, people, prosperity, peace, and partnership, we must not forget the P of pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank Geets, for this introduction on how the Agency for Facility Management is dealing with this very important topic of sustainability in a very holistic way and in a very transversal way of working. I now give the floor to Johan van Damme, who is responsible for the implementation of sustainability within this agency. And when everything goes well, Johan, if you unmute, you could hear us and then you could start your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for the introduction. Good morning, everybody, or perhaps good afternoon or good evening for some people. I'm Johan van Damme. I'm Sustainability Coordinator. And I would like to give some insights in how we have built up our sustainability policy with the use of the SDGs. So sustainability already was important for us even before the UN presented its developmental goals. We already had a lot of valuable initiatives, but the overall story was missing. It was unclear what our ambitions were, what our direction was, what is our story. So at that time, that's 2016, we were aware that the existence of the SDGs, but at that moment, everybody, including us, was still searching for a way to work with them. But one thing became clear. The ambitions and the scope of the agenda appealed to us, and we made the commitment to work with them as soon as more information and support material became available. So in 2016, we started a strategy exercise. We took the existing strengths of our organization as our point of departure, so an inside-out approach. We defined our vision and ambition, made an analysis of our impact, we set goals and defined our strategy. Now, to make a long story short, our sustainability program was born. Now, to support that strategy, sustainability became the annual theme in 2017. We created an information page to make it easy for staff and other stakeholders to access the information. And very important, a sustainability team was set up, made of ambassadors from the different departments. Now, the most important core values that we defined, and as Frank already mentioned, was being future-driven. Now, as facility provider, of course, we have to be customer-focused. And from a stakeholder point of view, our exemplary role was stressed out. Also, experimenting with new business models was set as an important topic, and the stimulation of new markets. Now, in 2017, when we heard about the training and support offer of CIFAL Flanders, there was no doubt that we would enter that partnership. We wanted to see how we could integrate the ambitions of the SDGs in our own ambitious program. But so this time from the outside-in approach. So we started a process of understanding the SDGs, translating them to our business, and very important, to put them in our daily activities. We organized information sessions in order to become acquainted with the agenda, to properly access the ambitions and the call of the agenda. We organized workshops for management and a broader group of staff. And thereby, it was very important also to give proper training to the members of the sustainability team, kind of train the trainer approach. This gave us the possibility of working internally with this on a daily basis. And so several exercises in small groups were made to make those SDGs our own. Now, very important, and let's even say crucial, was the translation of the SDGs to a guiding framework for our business. So we looked at the different challenges of the SDGs, and for each main target, for every SDG and every underlying sub-target, we studied the contribution we could make, and this resulted in what we call our SDG commitment statement. And so this translation made it clear to the staff what the SDGs mean for us and where our challenges lay. And then of course, we listed the targets according to our impact and our business opportunities. And for us, SDG 3, 9, and 12 are at the top of the list. SDG 3 we translate as offering a healthy workplace and workplace environment. SDG 9 as realizing forward-looking, circular and fully accessible building, simulating and innovating in our own organization, but also in our value chain. And of course, SDG 12, which is for us our leading SDG, is focusing on those circular business models. And of course, all this within the framework of being a strong public service provider, SDG 16, and where partnerships take a central position, SDG 17. So this commitment statement is now our new strategic framework for sustainability, a basic tool for everyone who asks what sustainability means for us. Now, in 2018, we updated our mission and our vision. Our vision being building together a government of the future, and our mission as agency creating a sustainable and inspiring work environment for our colleagues in the government so that they can shine. And very important, as Frank already mentioned, sustainability was adopted as an added value which everybody must take into account. Now, from this mission and vision, we set up new goals, but at the level of the organization. And our SDG commitment statement was used as a reflection framework for sustainability in those new goals. Now, to focus on how we want to achieve all these commitments, we looked for each commitment at the aim of the agenda, the relations with Focus 2030, and that's a translation of the SDGs for Flanders, and the challenges and opportunities we have regarding to this commitment. And accordingly, we listed current initiatives and further steps. And so this commitment statement and all these initiatives are essential building blocks of our roadmap towards 2030. Now, this roadmap is a dynamic document that will be updated annually and gives input, very important, to an annual business plan. So this ensures embedding in our and integration in our day-to-day operations, and is also very important, a basis for further communication and involvement of the stakeholders through the communication of our business plan. So in the roadmap, we also defined the areas of influence for each initiative. And we have defined different spheres of influence. For example, elements that are related to vision or mission or important principles, actions that are related to internal operations or to products and services, or actions related to our chain management, or to even to local community, and actions related to internal collaboration and partnerships. Now, what the agenda mainly teaches us is to take extra steps toward, as Peter said, strong sustainability. And I would like to close with some examples to show how we try to deal with that challenge. First examples is in the field of the real estate. In 2023, a new office building in Brussels will arise. Now, with this building, we really raised the bar with regards to a new sustainable way of working, and also a new way of urban development, because the building will not only include offices, but also residential units, a hotel, sport facilities, recreational areas, and commercial businesses. But important, the bar has also been raised in the area of circularity. 95% of the materials from the existing building have been recovered or recycled, and more than 30 new types of material have been certified as circular. Now, that circular thinking is also expressed in the construction, which ensures that offices, housing, and hotel rooms in the building can all be provided within the same basic construction. So the building is not only focusing on the needs of today, but can also be adapted to the needs of tomorrow. A second example is refurbishing. We have refurbished a large number of buildings in the last years. Now, these projects always result in cost saving and preventing a lot of CO2 emissions. But putting such projects out for tender often take place separately for each entity within the government and is often not done due to the lack of time or knowledge. So we recently have concluded 2 new framework contracts, which means that entities of the government, but also local administrations, can easily purchase refurbished office furniture. So the refurbishment itself takes place through a combination of regular and social economy, but in this case, in this example, a more centralized approach encourages the choice for more sustainable furniture. Another example is, of course, paper. Paper is an important raw material for desk work. Now, recently, we have reached innovative agreements with the different players in the paper chain to obtain a higher quality circular paper. So our white paper office now is collected separately and offered to the waste collectors for recycling. So thereby, the value of the paper fibers is not reduced due to the mixing with low-value paper types such as cardboard. So we create an extra value by selling this high-quality recycling paper to the producers. And on the purchasing side, we offer framework contracts, new framework contracts to buy this paper. So here we create a new value chain which treats resources more smartly and also promotes the awareness of all those involved in the chain. And when other firms also approach their paper in the same circular way, this increases the effect of the action. So communication plays an important role in this example. Now, we are currently organizing in the Flemish Government a centralization of our public procurement. Now, by combining purchases for several customers, we not only ensure better prices, but we also create a volume that is very attractive for suppliers, and they are more prepared to adapt to our desires. Now, we aim for 100% sustainable public procurement, and in this way, we push the market towards sustainability. For example, we have a wide range of fair trade products in our catering, which has led recently to a 4-star award from Fair Trade Belgium. But also in our public procurement, we want our suppliers to work on their reduction of CO2 emissions. And that is why we have started pilot projects to apply the CO2 performance ladder to public procurement. So tenderers who score well on this ladder will enjoy a favorable award advantage. And recently, we established a partnership with Electronic Watch with the aim of only purchasing our electronic equipment from socially responsible suppliers and to exert pressure within the ICT supply chain. And the final example on this slide relates to startups and SMEs. They are important source for innovation and employment and are also often inspirational role models for other companies. So now we are taking measures to better highlight initiatives and contracts among these startups and SMEs, and also to lower the threshold for participating in our public procurements. And finally, with Sandbox Vlaanderen and Sandbox Flanders, we offer startup ICT companies a place, both digitally and physically, to test their new products to our technology, against our technology and our needs. So here we create with them a space for innovation and to experiment. So what are our main conclusions so far in working with the SDGs? Well, the SDGs have given us not only a new broader framework for our ambitions and daily operations, but they keep us focused on the broader societal challenges. They keep us focused on always improving. Now, for ourselves, we have set the goal of making our policy framework SDG proof, and that we use the SDGs as a critical reflection framework for all our programs and projects. And very important, working with the SDGs also emphasizes the importance of not only communicating with the stakeholders, but really working together with them, making them part of our ambition across borders and with a scope that at the moment one thinks is perhaps impossible. And with this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johan, for this very, very interesting presentation on how things are happening really within the organization with some concrete examples. I want to stress also from a CIFAL Flanders UNITAR perspective that we are very glad with this collaboration. It's not that surprising that your agency is here in Flanders, Belgium, the first to go from SDG Pioneer to SDG Champion. So I hope it's an example for a lot of our other training partners to become indeed SDG Champion and to follow the example of the agency for facility operations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I give the floor to Sam van Hoof for a very small 5-minute Mentimeter exercise. So if possible, please keep your cell phones available, your smartphones. If not, it's also possible to do the exercise through your computer, laptop. A first check on how you are working with the SDGs. I give the floor to Sam van Hoof.
Thank you very much, Peter. So as Peter has introduced, we are going to do a Mentimeter exercise. Now this may be new for some of you, but I'll guide you through it step by step. So I will be starting the presentation now. So normally you should be able to see a question on the screen. What I would like you to do is grab your smartphone and go to the website menti.com. The instructions are on the top of your screen, so you can see the website there. It's www.menti.com. Now, if you are on this website, you will see that the website asks you to enter a code, which you can also see on the screen here. The code is 768715 3. Then you will see the question that is in your screen. So the question is, does your organization take into account the 5 P's of sustainable development? So think a bit about your organization, the way it approaches sustainable development and sustainable management, and see or answer if you take into account the 5 P's. I see that there's already people answering these questions live here on the screen, so we can see that there is already 28 people participating in the Mentimeter, and we have a big majority voting for yes, taking into account the 5 P's of sustainable development. I'll give you a bit more time to respond, seeing that we are currently almost 60 people in this webinar, and we are currently at 33 people responding to this Mentimeter exercise. So again, if you haven't been able to access the exercise, go to the website menti.com and then use the code that is shown on top of your screen. Now I see that there is a very big majority of people voting for yes, which we are very happy about, that you are using the 5 P's in your sustainable approach at the organization. There are still answers incoming, so I'll keep the question live for a couple more seconds. We're almost at 40 people responding to this question. And again, more people coming in telling they are taking into account the 5 P's of sustainable development. I see we're now at 43, which is almost all of us. We're now 59 in the webinar, 43. I'll give you a few more seconds and then I'll go to the next question. All right, so I'm closing this question now and moving on to the next one. There we go. So normally your smartphone, if you're still on the Menti website, should show the new question, which is a statement, and it says the Agenda 2030 is a strong added value for my organization. Now you should be able to give us an idea of the extent to which you agree to this statement. And on the slide, you can now see the average of our answers. We are already at 25 answers, so that's quite a lot. And you can see that 8.3 is the average currently of people agreeing to this statement. So again, take a bit of time to answer the statement and then click on submit. We are currently at 37 answers, which is a very good amount. And I see that we are currently 60 in this webinar, which is also very happy to see. We're almost at 40 responses. And again, there's a big majority of people saying that they believe the Agenda 2030 is a strong added value for their organization. It's a very hopeful message. All right. Then now I'll be closing down the Mentimeter exercise. Thank you very much for participating. I hope this helps you in giving us some input for this webinar and also keeps the energy levels high. So I will now go back to the slides and give the floor to Peter. No.
So thank you very much for joining us in those two small exercises. Of course, we are very happy that most of you already using the 5 Ps as 5 dimensions of sustainable development. That means not only the idea of the social sustainability, the ecological sustainability, and the sustainability from an economic perspective, but also the new elements of the Agenda 2030, peace and partnership. And secondly, of course, a very good score also about the possible added value of using this Agenda 2030 in a strategic way within an organization. So I'm so honored and thrilled not only to see a lot of our CIFAL colleagues around the globe, and also the director of the CIFAL Global Network, Alex Mejia, is with us today, but also to introduce to you Nikhil Seth, who is the UN Assistant Secretary General and Executive Director of UNITAR, who is joining us today for this webinar. And I'd like to give him the floor for some reflections within the context of learning and training at one hand and leading by example from the other hand. Nikhil, if you are here, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. And before saying anything, I must say how thrilled I am to hear what has been done by the Agency for Facility Operations for the Flemish Government. It was really heartening to listen to all the progress they have made. And of course, the Mentimeter exercise, I was very happy to see how successful the SDGs have been in the organizations at least represented today in this webinar. Let me start by thanking you for inviting me to be part of the award ceremony, which will be giving the certificate of SDG Champion to the Agency for Facility Operations for the Flemish Government. 2 years ago, I was very happy to award the completion certificate to the agency, which was step 1. And in these 2 years, the agency has become an SDG champion. So congratulations for becoming a role model. And we hope you'll be at step 3 very soon and become an SDG ambassador. And hopefully we'll be able to meet physically by the time you become an SDG ambassador. All this has been made possible by the exemplary leadership of Frank Gates and the team working for the SDGs. Johan van Damme, Philippe Francois, and Sven Peters. And of course, I'd like to also thank CIFAL Flanders. I'm very proud of the work you do in CIFAL Flanders, Peter Wollard, and your team. They're doing a tremendous job, which is extremely, extremely impressive. And of course, I'm deeply grateful to the commitment of the Flemish government. It is the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and the 5 years of SDG implementation. And we are meeting at a time where the shadow of COVID-19 has added a layer of uncertainty and vulnerability to each one of us individually, to our institutions, to our organizations, and to the world at large. The health crisis that we are facing today is making much worse the political crisis we face, the economic crisis we are facing, the social crisis, and the environmental crisis. So, looking back on 5 years, we are not in a good place on SDG implementation. Poverty around the world has 75 million people, according to the World Bank, have been pushed back into abject poverty. The incidence and the number of hungry people in the world has gone up tremendously. Inequality induced by COVID-19 has increased. After all, the most affected are those who are not in regular employment, those who have to fend for their livelihoods, and those who are in the informal sector. Biodiversity loss continues unabated. There is no check on climate change. There's no check on water stress. And there are geopolitical tensions in every part of the world we look at. Syria, Libya, Yemen, Nagorno-Karabakh, South Asia, Mali, Venezuela, Latin America. The relations between US and China are in a dismal state. The relations of the big powers, US, China, and Russia, have no silver lining. The Security Council of the United Nations seems paralyzed and helpless. There are social tensions everywhere. There is evidence of racism everywhere. And civil strife has become the common feature in many, many countries. I was so happy to hear how the 5 Ps have played such a prominent and important role in the training Peter Wollard has done and adopted by everyone, including, of course, the Agency for Facility Operations of the Flemish Government. Of course, it's not the silos of the pillars that are important, but our ability to integrate these and to see how these 5 Ps are enmeshed with each other. And unless you design policy intelligently, which looks at the integration between these 5 Ps, we are not going to be that successful. When I joined UNITAR, I reorganized the UNITAR. And in fact, my most prominent divisions are the divisions for planet, for peace, for people, and prosperity. So the SDGs was the basis of the reorganization of UNITAR. Before I go into the learning, training, and the leadership dimension, Peter, I just wanted to mention that in this serious situation that the world is in today, where we don't know whether our children will see tomorrow, leave alone a brighter tomorrow, I must focus on the 5 big transitions which are embedded in the SDGs, which we must all work towards. One is a transition in public health and the target of the SDGs to realize universal health coverage. It is clear that each one individually and at all levels of government, whether they be regional or national or global governance structures, our primary obsession today is with COVID-19 and its prevention, its treatment, and its cure, and everything that goes in this entire spectrum of issues which relate to COVID-19. Who has been affected most during this crisis? It has been the vulnerable. Women have borne undue pain during this crisis. And we have to make sure that whatever public health systems we design for the future ensures public health, with affordable medicines, with affordable care, and vaccinations when they are available are fairly and equally distributed. So this is the first transition captured in 3.8, if I remember the goal and target correctly, but that has to be and will be a top priority. The second is on an energy transition. The world facing the problems of climate change needs a drastic overhaul in our energy systems, focusing on efficiency, focusing on renewables, and focusing on access of modern forms of energy to everyone. These were also captured in the SDGs very well, and that is a second urgent transformation I think the world needs. The third is in food systems and farm systems, which consume 40% of fresh water, and our present systems are not working, and the food industry is not working, and an indication of this is malnutrition, undernutrition, obesity, lack of micronutrients. All these are indicators that something has gone wrong with our food systems and our farm systems, which needs to be set right. The fourth is on education and learning, where we have seen how children, particularly the millions of children who've been left out of school during this period of COVID-19, and what kind of drastic reform is needed in this world of education and learning. And the fifth and final transition I think the world urgently needs is on the finance industry. I'm using that as an umbrella expression for banks, for asset management, for investments, for every aspect related to revenues and expenditures. And this industry needs a complete overhaul to help push us in the direction of sustainability. So without these five transitions, I don't know what kind of a tomorrow we are going to have, but we have to all be looking at these five transitions. And these are embedded in a certain way in the SDGs. Of course, the SDGs talk a lot about gender equality, of poverty, of inequality, of sustainable infrastructure, sustainable cities. But as I look at the world today, I think without these five transitions, we are not going to get there. I'm going to focus on one transition only because that's the domain I'm most familiar with. It's in the area of education and learning and training and capacity building. Because herein lies the long-term solution, I think, for many of the problems that ail us today. And the most urgent is getting people to change attitudes and change behaviors. I found in my life that adults find it very difficult. They become products of habit and they do the same thing again and again and again, hoping that somehow there will be a change as a result of what they have been doing all these years. But how do we get people, policymakers, universities, academia, local governments, private sector, civil society to change their attitudes and change their behaviors? That is where learning and what we do in training and capacity building comes in. I've seen the remarkable change that has been presented today by the Agency for Facility Operations, and I congratulate you. I know it's not an easy task, and I congratulate, of course, Peter and his team for how they have gone about this job very systematically and slowly to make sure that these changes in attitude are reflected in the change in the way you operate. And the lovely words I've heard on circularity, on building construction, on everything that has been presented was real music to my ears. Here is where an institution has been able to bring this change. But this change is not only for institutions, organizations, and governments. These changes are personal and individual. Each one of us, while looking at the SDGs, must look at ways in which we can internalize the SDGs. What is our own ecological footprint? How do we treat women? How do we treat inequalities? How do we treat issues of racial inequality and injustice? All these, if you look at each and every one of the SDGs, we can make a personal Agenda 2030, which is as important, I think, as the SDGs incorporated in institutions and organizations. So this is what I wanted to say on the larger issues of the SDGs. But I also wanted to say that the strategic and holistic approach of learning about sustainability and implementation, which is very much part of the training program, which has been developed by CIFAL Flanders and which has benefited the awardee today, is very important. The action learning methodology from knowledge to ownership, from ownership to local action, and from local action to larger ripples which go into the communities, which go into the regions, which go into the national government, which go into international collaboration, are all very important. Many of you talked about impact, and I think that is the most important. We must be constantly evaluating of how this has impacted on the targets we've set. One thing which I was very impressed by, and when I was helping create the SDGs, I always worried about, that the SDGs are too broad an umbrella, that they give an overall orientation. How will individuals, how will organizations and institutions customize this to make it relevant to their work, to make it relevant to their impacts? And here I have seen from the examples that you've given that yes, it's possible to take a very large umbrella agreement and convert it into an action plan which is customized and which is made local. So this is the orientation that you must have. And as you spread your success to other institutions, to other organizations in Flanders, and to the local and national government, I hope this element of the flexibility the SDGs offer, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It is the ability of your being able to use these broad indicators for social development, for economic development, for environmental sustainability, and for justice and peace. That should become the broad guidelines, but converted into locally relevant and customized goals and targets. So this is what I really wanted to communicate. And I thank you once again, and I turn the floor back to Peter.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for this inspiring introduction. And I hope everybody can hear me, because we are now in another location to hand over the certificates. I'm so glad, on behalf of UNITAR, on behalf of the CIFAL Global Network, and on behalf of CIFAL Flanders, of course, to hand over this first UNITAR SDG Champion training certificate to the Agency for Facility Operations of the Flemish Government. And next to me here, Frank Geets, who is the General Director of this agency. And Frank, again, thank you so much, first of all, to work together with us in the first phase to become SDG Pioneer. After 3 years, you said, we want to go for a second phase. We want to raise the bar to become SDG Champion. And this, I hope you can see, I will try to put it in the lens of the camera. We will hand over, on behalf of Mr. Seth and the colleagues, the first certificate of completion of SDG Champion here in Brussels.
Okay, thank you very much. We are honored that we are the first ones to receive this. And I believe the only thing we now can do is to continue to work on it and maybe become the first SDG ambassador.
That should be great, Frank. Yeah. That should be great. Thank you so much. We hope that this could inspire, of course, also other colleagues around the globe for achieving the next level, being the transitional level, the level of SDG Champion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
now again to Sam van Hoof.
Yes, well, now we'll move on to some closing remarks. The closing remarks will be given by Jan Smets, who is the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Minister-President of the Government of Flanders. Now, I hope Jan Smets is already online, and I will be giving him access to the presentation as well. So we would like to thank already the Government of Flanders for their support, and I now give the floor to Jan Smets for the closing remarks.
Thank you all. Thank you, Nikhil, for the kind and inspiring words. Thank you, Peter. And thank you, UNITAR and CIFAL, for all the support since we have embarked on this journey. Secondly, I would also like to thank Frank and his team and all the colleagues who have been actively involved in this achievement. What the agency does is a perfect illustration of the great importance that Flanders attaches to the global SDG framework. Flanders is strongly committed to this international agenda for sustainable development. As you know, the SDG framework is quite comprehensive, just as the term sustainability is a very widely applicable concept. Obviously, within that global framework, there's also a very specific Flemish context. Hence, Focus 2030 objectives framework was created, which translates the SDG into our context with a clear emphasis on those objectives where we can be impactful. With Focus 2030, as the Government of Flanders, we have set out the Flemish policy lines for our sustainability initiatives in this new decade. This objectives framework was already established under the previous government, and the current government has endorsed and updated this recently. The progress of the objectives, 53 in total, will be monitored through 111 dashboard indicators. This monitoring serves to gain insight into the effects of our policy, and this will determine whether current initiatives are sufficient or whether new initiatives need to be developed to achieve our goals we have set out. The circular economy, as was earlier mentioned by other speakers, is a clear example of those objectives that we have set out in the Focus 2030. And it's just one of the goals for which HSB has been working intensely, and where we have set out ambitious targets to reduce the carbon and material footprint of the Flemish consumption, as well as food losses in Flanders by 30%. In doing so, het facilitair bedrijf stimulates sustainability in very different areas: housing, food, mobility, and you can go on about that. Creating good practices, which are adoptable by others, and acting as an important leverage for Flanders as a region. What was also well demonstrated by these initiatives is that partnerships are often a necessary way to achieve these greater innovations. Where the project of the circular paper was a clear example of that. We strongly believe that building on good examples, transforming systems in collaboration with others is the way to go in the future. This is why Flanders and HFB want to take up this role in collaboration with CIFAL and UNITAR. Therefore, the Government of Flanders is very proud of the achievement of the facilitair bedrijf, because it has fully incorporated the sustainability thinking into our operations. Hereby, HFBP plays a pioneering role in a much needed global movement that we also recognize and want to strengthen at the Flemish level. Congratulations to all, and thank you.
Thank you very much on behalf of CIFAL Flanders and our colleagues for those closing remarks. It's an important motivation to be supported by the Flemish government through this process of becoming more sustainable and on the policy making level and in concrete agencies of the Flemish government. Thank you so much, Mr. Jan Smets, and we are almost in the last minutes of this webinar, but not before we ask you again to take your cell phone, because we have a small evaluation question for you, and I'd like to give the floor to Sam van Hoof. Just a simple check. How do you evaluate this webinar?
Thank you for the floor, Peter. We will be now using Mentimeter once again for the evaluation of this webinar. So I invite you to go to the website of menti.com and then use the code that is shown on the screen. And then now I will be sharing the live results of this question. So the question is how you would evaluate this webinar. You can evaluate the webinar on two aspects. The first is the content of the webinar. The second is the organization. And again, the code is shown on top of the screen. It's 4949460. And I see that there's already 14 people responding to this Mentimeter exercise. We are currently still 54 people in this webinar, so still way to go. Thank you very much for giving your input on this evaluation. I see that there's some positive results there, and we're very happy to see this. I'll give you a bit more time to respond to the Mentimeter, and then afterwards we will move on to a Q&A, so you can already think about any questions you would have for either CIFAL Flanders, UNITAR, or the Agency for Facility Operations of the Flemish Government. I see there is now 26 people responding to this Mentimeter and still more incoming. So I suggest that I leave this Mentimeter exercise live so you can still respond to the evaluation, and we will take your responses into account. In the meantime, we will now move on to the Q&A. So I'll give the floor back to Peter for the Q&A.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for participating in this international webinar on the exercises we delivered together with the Agency for Facility Operations here in Flanders, Belgium. Before we can go to some Q&A, I really want to thank Mr. Nikhil Seth to be with us today. It's an important message that you could make some time free to support all the training partners of CIFAL Flanders, to encourage them indeed within complex times of COVID-19. That is also the reason why we introduced a review check in the second phase now of the program, a review check on COVID-19, because we are sure that some of the smart targets that were defined 2 or 3 years ago will need to be reviewed within a completely new context, locally and internationally. But thank you so much, Nikhil Seth, to be with us today. Thank you for the colleagues around the globe that were joining us from the CIFAL centers in the Americas, in Africa, in Asia, and in Europe. Thank you so much to be with us today. Thank you, Alex Mejia, who is the director of the CIFAL Global Network in Geneva, to be with us today. And of course, thank you to all participants that joined us for this webinar. I'd like to open the floor for some Q&A. That could be some questions about our presentations on the trajectory, or of course some questions about the agency itself. It's possible to send us a question through the chat box function of Zoom. The first message we received is from a colleague of the agency that was awarded today. We push boundaries every day. Congratulations to all my colleagues who contributed to this, from Karl Franken. Indeed, this is teamwork, and internally, and teamwork in a network of participations and partnerships. We are just waiting some second if there are some last questions. If not, no problem. You will see on the next slide our contact details. So you can reach us through our website or through social media. So if you have any questions on the offer we have, the trainings we deliver on the Agenda 2030, please feel free to contact us. And I hope to see or hear you again. We will be again in some webinars the next coming weeks within the SDG week in Belgium. It's an important cluster of initiatives to promote the SDGs after 5 years, and also within the context of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, so the week before the 24th of October. If you want to be informed about our trainings, please subscribe to our newsletter, and you will be informed through our monthly newsletter. I see some elements in the check box, but till now it's more and of course very much accepted. Congratulations to the agency, to the province of Antwerp for the collaboration, and to our team of CIFAL Flanders. I want to close down here to thank the team of CIFAL Flanders together with the team of the agency to work closely together to organize this webinar, and hopefully also you will be encouraged to implement the SDGs in your proper organization, and as Nikhil Seth said, also in your private lives. Thank you so much. Keep safe, keep healthy, and hopefully we can see each other for another webinar in the month of October. Bye-bye.